It's the Germany Experience, the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. I'm your host, Sean. Visit the website, thegermanyexperience.de, or email me at info@thegermanyexperience.de. As you know, I'm currently taking a summer break, and I'm posting reruns of older episodes, just in case you missed the episodes, or maybe you want to re-listen. You want to hear the older episodes again? I don't know. Back in March 2021, I did a Q&A session where I answered various questions from you, the listeners, and also from my followers on social media. And some of the questions that I answer are things like, how can you develop close friendships with Germans? What are the reasons foreigners from developed countries decide to stay in Germany for the long term? Why is cash such a prominent form of payment? And what's up with all the reversing into parking spaces? Here's the Q&A from March 2021. Enjoy. These questions were either mailed to me or sent via Facebook or Instagram. So let's start with prior guest on the show, Amy Holt. What's your favorite typisch Deutsch food? Unfortunately, Amy, I have to be really boring here because I love a lot of different foods. For example, I had carp for the first time. I live in an area that celebrates carp. They live for their carp. It's called Karpfen auf Deutsch, and you get carp season, and everyone, like all the breweries in the region, that's their speciality, and that's all you get. So I tried carp for the first time in my life recently, and it was great. It was really, really good. They have like a specific way that they baked it and served it. It was much better than I thought it would be. So that was pretty cool. And I love things like Döner, and which is, you could argue if that's traditional German, but it's, yeah. But my favorite thing, if I go to any beer garden or if I'm in a traditional German brewery, I am very boring and I love the schnitzel. I just love schnitzel. That's all I do. And I know people will say maybe Austria, it's not exactly German, but to me it's German. It's traditional and I just love it, but it's very boring. I know. Sorry, I couldn't be more interesting about my food choices. A user on Instagram named Hartza asked me, is Germany currently in a lockdown? Or does it depend on the city? Hartza, it's kind of like a Facebook relationship status. It's complicated. But yeah, to answer your question, the entire Germany is kind of on a lockdown. We have lockdown measures in place, but those change based on the incidence value, which is how many people per 100,000 in your Landkreis, in your region, got sick with coronavirus in the last 7 days. And if it's over 100 incidents of that, so 100 people got sick in the last 7 days, then they have lockdown measures in place. It gets pretty stringent. We have something called an Ausgangssperre, which is where you're not allowed to go out. Then we also have, no restaurants, nothing like that open. And they've just introduced measures where things will get a little bit lighter from a lockdown perspective if you go under, I think it was 50 incidence value. Now, unfortunately, the area that I live has been over 100 since way back when. So I've literally not done anything, gone anywhere, haven't been to a restaurant in ages. It's getting crazy. I think it's over 110 days that we've been in lockdown. I got lockdown fatigue, and I think a lot of people do. I will say for me, I have a very good situation. I still have a job, and I'm lucky enough to have a family that I get to spend time with, and we have enough space where we are. So for me, this is like a minor inconvenience. I am well aware of the privilege that I have in that situation, because there are a lot of people that have had it a lot worse. And I don't deny that. And this is like complaining on a trivial level, if you want to say that, but it is tiring to still be in lockdown, and it's confusing. I don't know what's going on. Like, the incidence value changes. I'm not going to watch an incidence value every day to see what are we today. And if the kids go back to school like they did in Nuremberg, which is near to where I am, and then suddenly the incidence value is over 100, the kids don't go to school anymore. No one knows what's going on. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So it's not practical. Let's put it that way. Next question. And this is a big one, because it's something that comes up a lot, and I think a lot of people want to know. And it came from someone I'm going to mispronounce her Instagram profile, Punik Tauer. All right. And she asked me this question in German. So I've translated it into English. As a foreigner, how can you develop close friendships with Germans? Woo! Okay. If I knew the answer to this, first of all, I would go out in my village and make friends with all of the Germans. I would just make friends with every single one of them. And then I would write a book about it, explaining how I made friends with all of the Germans. The point is, there is no hard and fast rule. This is a difficult thing that we're talking about. It's very difficult because you're trying to make friends with someone from another culture. I've only ever moved to Germany. I've only been a foreigner or an expat in Germany. So I can only talk from limited experience. I don't know if it's like this in other countries, but it's tough. It's tough. But the thing about this is it's very tricky because every German is, of course, different. Every individual German is different. And also there's a lot of stereotypes that go around about that. So I would say the German friends that I made in my early German days in Germany, when I couldn't speak very good German, they were people who were kind of more naturally open. They had a lot of international friends as well. So it was like something that they liked to do. They didn't mind whether they were hanging out with Germans or people from other cultures, and they were just more gregarious and open to it. So I think what I would say is if you can find those in the early days, those Germans, just cling to them. Just hold on to them. But not too much because, creepy. But those are the Germans that can give you a good entry into the culture. But it's not always easy to find them. You have to be going out. You have to have chance meetings with them, or you're working with them. But if you spot one of those more open Germans, more naturally friendly, just, try and get in there. The other thing that I can say from personal experiences, just don't rush it. Like, you just go with the flow. Don't invite them over for dinner for a while, because this seems to be something Germans find a little more intimate, if you want to say, like full-on dinner at someone's house. For me as a South African, this was just a step. Like if I met someone that was kind of cool, I would say, hey, come over and let's have dinner, and that was just, it was not a big deal. But Germans view having a meal at someone's house as kind of a big deal. This is just my feeling. And of course, always remember, I'm talking from my own experience, and every region in Germany is also different. So this might be different where you are. But where I was in the beginning, I will never forget, we had a young guy who was a German student at the time, and we were friends with him. And he would invite us out to nightclubs. We would go to nightclubs, and, that was that. And then my wife suggested that that he comes over to us for a meal. And his reply to her was something along the lines of, we don't do that. So, it was quite a mean shoot down for us. Like, you were just, what did I say? What did I do? How is that? What have I done wrong? But, with hindsight, I realized, like, he was just being honest, like, too soon, we're not going to do dinner. So just keep that in mind. Like, that seems to be a big deal for the Germans. And I remember I saw a post on Facebook a few days ago of someone who just moved into a new complex, and he said, can I invite my German neighbors, who are very nice, over for a meal? And like, no, don't. It's way too soon. And what you need to do is first start off with Kaffee and Kuchen, maybe coffee and cake, or some other kind of thing where you just hang out and get to know each other. Like, and even barbecues, even though you could think of them as dinner or lunch at someone's place, they're more informal. They're outdoors. So feel free to invite Germans over for a grill at times. I think that could work a bit easier than dinner. But of course, the other thing we have at the moment is coronavirus complicating this. So I don't know how you're making friends, new people in Germany. I don't know. I don't know how you're doing it. So, but I also feel it's quite important to differentiate here that what we're talking about when we're talking about friendly and how friendly Germans are, because Germans are friendly, contrary to the popular stereotype. And in fact, just today I was at a Baumarkt, and the cashier couldn't have been more charming or funny. I had a great encounter with her. And then when I was loading, I bought quite a big item at the Baumarkt, and I was trying to put it into my car, and it was quite heavy and awkward. And a German just passing by, he's got his own things to do. He just stopped and offered to help me. So it was, that's the kind of thing that you can expect in Germany. And in fact, even in my early days, I always felt that I would always be able to rely on strangers if I ran into difficulties. It's just Germans are friendly in that way, and they're very helpful, and they will always stop, and people won't just leave you in trouble. And especially if you ask for the help, you'll probably get it. However, if you expect them to invite you around after they've helped you, you're going to be disappointed. So, and there's the difference. Germans are actually friendly and helpful, but developing that meaningful relationship with them is difficult, which means that you need to define what you mean by friendship. If you're looking for someone to do stuff with, Germans are very good for that. They love doing like Freizeit activity or playing sports or something like that. If you're looking to hang around them, find something like that to do, because they're very good at that. Just doing stuff. Rock climbing. I know many Germans who go rock climbing, or they're very active, or wandern, hiking, things like that. So, yeah. But if you're expecting them to invite you into their inner circle, you're going to need to wait a little while. So it depends what you want from the friendship. If you just want someone to hang out with, a bit of a glimpse into German culture, you can get that. You can definitely get that. But if you want that meaningful relationship, it's going to take time and may never develop. So there is that. So, yeah. Some answers from my YouTube comments, and specifically on the episode. There was an episode with Amy from the USA, who was the first question that I read in this question and answer, by the way. Her video on YouTube, it's just the audio version, but her video on YouTube had a lot of activity and a lot of Germans offering advice. And I'll just read you some of the comments that came under that video, because it's really helpful from a German perspective, Germans offering help on how to be friends with them. The one said, this is kind of my favorite because it's a little bit of a mean comment, if you want to say it that way. Maybe cynical is a better word. In a small town, once you've told your story, everyone knows within a few weeks. So why should anyone bother asking you about it again? What? It's like, I don't even know what that's supposed to, okay. To make friends, join a local sports club, or invite your neighbors to a barbecue and attend the local fests. Lothar also said, join a Verein. And that's like a group, a community of people who have similar tastes. My advice, try to find a club that fits your interests and get involved in it. I hope you make progress with that advice. And by the way, it boosts your chances if you and your husband did find different clubs. And then Martin, who wrote this originally in German, and I translated it, so hopefully I get the meaning across. But he says, to meet more people, it's still good with a dog. If you want to make friends in Germany, get a dog. That's also from a German. The clubs are, of course, still a classic base for contacts. There is a club for every hobby. And there really is. I've heard of potato clubs. What happens when 3 Germans get together? They start a club. So it's quite common. He also continued, there is something else stupid in Germany. You are educated to keep your distance. And this, I think, is really insightful comment. One is embarrassingly careful not to get on anyone's nerves, not to be too intrusive. Until you have your neighbor in the kitchen for a coffee, to organize this un-German activity of small talk, years can pass. Always, because there is this fear, she invited me, but I have 3 children. I'm just going to take time. Oh, she has 3 children. I'm just going to take time away. The family must think I have no home. And I think I've noticed that about the Germans. Until I read this comment, I didn't really formulate in my mind, but he's right. Like, Germans are embarrassingly careful not to get on anyone's nerves in one way. There is, of course, the other way that they're very direct people. And my favorite part of his comment is this here. So, in Germany, a perfect stranger could tell you, your trousers don't match your jacket. The same stranger would run away if you asked him to discuss it over a beer. And that's perfect. That is the perfect analogy, Martin, whoever you are. And he continues, so with the people in Germany who are important to you, stay on the ball. They're simply shy. And I love that comment because there is multiple insights that you can get from it. Although they are very direct, they will say what they mean. They're also shy in a way that they don't want to come over to you for dinner if they've just met you. And it's maybe not because they're being aloof or anything, but they're honestly afraid that they're wasting your time. So this was a really, really cool, insightful comment from Martin. So yeah, I could talk for a whole podcast episode. I have had several podcast episodes about this on the German experience. The Amy episode was one. There was another one about, I can't remember. There was, I think, Tim way back in 2019. We discussed some advice he has. So it's a big issue coming to Germany, and that's why I brought it in here as well, because I thought it's good to talk about it every now and then. I can't offer you advice. Everyone's different. Every German's different. You're different. Just keep in mind. And I think this idea of Vereins is a good idea. So if you want to meet people, find something that you're interested in and go to that, and you will meet people with the same interest there. That's already a great start. So yeah, thank you for that question. I'm not going to try to pronounce your name again. The next question that I had was from Elisa Jordan Wrights, and she says, do you feel like Germany is your real home now? If yes, why? And if not, why not? Yes, is the simple answer. It does feel like my real home now. And in fact, bizarrely enough, it felt like home very soon after we arrived, to both me and my wife. We're both from South Africa, and we arrived and it was pretty instantaneous. I just felt comfortable in the culture. And even though there were a lot of frustrations and a lot of culture shocks, and we struggled with the language, I still struggle with the language. It just kind of was, the culture was a fit in some ways. Like it's difficult for me to quantify. So for me personally, and for my wife, this did feel like home straight away. Not to say we weren't homesick, and not to say we weren't frustrated, because there were times where I just thought, what are we even doing here? Let's just go home to South Africa and call it quits here. So there were times like that. Now, it is my home. I mean, we have careers here. We've learned the language to a decent level. We have German passports. Our kids are, taking in the culture, and yeah, it is home. It is home now, to answer that question. And following on to that, to the next question, Antoinette _ New Zealand, NZ from Instagram. And she is, of course, Antoinette Emily from YouTube channel. I will link to that in the show notes as well. She was also a guest on the show. She said, would you ever consider moving back to South Africa at some point? And kind of following on from the last question, it's something I think of still to this day, because Cape Town is amazing. If you've ever been to Cape Town, it's beautiful there. Maybe, it would be nice. It's nice to entertain the thought of living at the coast and beautiful weather, but there is a lot of other things that reasons that we left South Africa. It was very, at that time, high crime rate. It was, we were looking for a safer place to start a family. And yeah, so I sometimes entertain the thought, but it's more just it would be cool if we lived at the coast with nice weather, because it would, but it doesn't mean I would actually move back. So I hope that answers that. Then I've got a question from someone named Pam, who emailed me, and she asked a lot of questions in 2 emails, which I loved. It started with some questions about real estate, which I'm going to be answering in a future episode. And then she sent a second email with more questions, which I'm going to save most of them for the next Ask a German episode. But I just took some questions from Pam to answer in this Q&A. So a personal question for you: why did you and your family choose to move to Germany instead of Australia or New Zealand or somewhere like that, where English is also spoken and the weather is much nicer? That's a good question. That is a good question. Sometimes in the early days, I also asked myself like that: why Germany? Why are we doing this to ourselves? I think it was because Australia and New Zealand are both very difficult to get into as a South African. You had to tick a lot of boxes, and you had to be going to a job and a lot of different things. Germany's pretty tough to get into as well from that perspective, but in some ways we just had a path through my wife's job where she got a job here in Germany, and we were able to utilize that to move over. So it just kind of happened. And at that time we thought, German, like, I'm sure we'll learn a new language. So it just kind of happened that it was Germany. And I think in some ways I'm glad somehow, because yeah, it's given me a great life here in Germany. Also from Pam, her question: apart from free education, what are the other main reasons for people from other developed countries, to want to stay in Germany for the long haul? I would actually say free education is fairly low on the list, from just from my experiences of people I've spoken to and guests on the podcast, I would say a more common reason would be love. I know a lot of people, guests and other people in my Freundekreis, my friendship circles, who moved here for a German and stayed here, got married and stayed here and love living here. So I would say that was almost the top reason. And another reason is, like I said about our reason, was kind of a better life here than you would have in countries. But I guess that's from other developed countries was part of your question. So yeah, maybe that's not a good answer. And then Pam again, why is cash still such a prominent means of payment? Is it because of the aging population and that's what the elderly have always done, or more about privacy concerns? And I bring this up because the last episode of the German experience was with Alex from the USA, and she brought up digitization in Germany and how it's lagging behind the rest of the world. And this was one of the things we spoke about, is paying by cash. And I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think it has to do with digitization. It has to do with bureaucracy. But it also, one of the first things I noticed when I came to Germany was that it deals differently, or Germans deal differently with credit. And they don't like credit as such. And in fact, the credit cards work differently here. So I don't know if they all work like this, but all the ones that we looked into, you use a credit card and then the whole amount comes off the next month. Whereas in South Africa, I was used to paying it off like over 6 months. You would pay your credit off over 6 months. But here it's just like a future debit card. You have it, like, it's going to come off on your next paycheck, the whole amount. And even that is just like a mindset that I think that they have big issues with debt and getting into a lot of credit. And maybe that's driven some of the things. Like I said, also digitization, things being done the way it's always been done, and Datenschutz. I think that's a big deal as well. Germans and their Datenschutz they're sticklers for it. But what I can say is that this payment issue, like credit, not wide acceptance of credit cards, is annoying for the Germans as well. It's not just us foreigners who complain about this. And you just have to go and listen to the Ask a German episode I did back last year. They were quite they were quite annoyed by the same thing. So yeah. Thanks, Pam, for those questions. Henrik on Facebook asked me, question, what's up with all the reversing into parking spaces? Seems to be a generational thing too. And this was an interesting question because when he asked me, I'm like, yeah, there are a lot, like reversing into parking spaces does happen a lot here, but doesn't it in other countries? Like, I can't remember in South Africa if people did that. I just do it because people do it. And then sometimes what happens is one person does it and everyone else just does it. And then you come along and like, why? Like, I'm not going to park forward now if everyone's reversed into the parking. So long story short, Henrik, I don't know. I don't know why that is. I don't know why. But interesting question. Thank you for that. Wendy. I was going to say Wendy. I can't remember where this question came in. I think it was on Instagram. How has it been raising kids as an expat? Do they feel different from the German kids? Do they feel different from the German kids? I don't know that yet because my eldest son, who is 10 years old, he has special needs. So his kind of social development isn't the normal development that you would have. And I have a 5-year-old who goes to kindergarten here, and she speaks great German. So at home, we only speak English. The kids don't get any sort of access to German from us because our German, they'll just learn bad habits. But my 5-year-old went to a German kindergarten from the age of, I think, 2 or so, and she's picked up amazing German. It's incredible. We also have a 15-month-old who obviously hasn't been exposed to German yet. She's still at home. She hasn't gone to kindergarten. But the 5-year-old fits in well. She's like, I think she was young enough to kind of just ease into the German culture and the German language. And her friends know that we speak German at home. They come and visit us. I mean, not during Corona times, of course, but they come and visit us, and, you know, they notice that we speak English with each other, and they definitely see it and are aware of it. But I guess they'll only start noticing the differences later on when they get a bit older, I suppose, when things, and one of the big things is traditions. So like we've got our own traditions that we brought from South Africa, and we don't know a lot of the German traditions, so we wouldn't be able to teach our kids those German traditions. So there's going to be more and more, I think, that our kids will learn somewhere else, that like, oh, this is what every other kid does, and I don't. And I don't know if that's going to be something that other kids look at and like, why doesn't she celebrate the Christkind or something? I don't know. So it's difficult. We're trying to adopt some of the German traditions and ease them, like kind of fit them in between the traditions that we really want to keep from South Africa and from our background. But it's tricky because you want to expose the kids. You don't want them to feel like outsiders, but at the same time, you want them to be true to their roots. So I don't know. I'm waffling on about this, but it's not an easy question to answer. And of course, then with my son having special needs, for him, it's, he's mostly nonverbal. He's now saying a lot more words and stuff, but he's also had it tough because he's struggling to learn just one language, just English. And then he goes out to a special needs school here. He has therapy in German. So he's getting exposure to German as well. And like I said, he takes it in very slowly and it takes time. And that's also been a question in our minds, like, are we doing the right thing by exposing him to the foreign language? We hope that it gives him additional stimulation, but it could be hindering his language development. It's difficult to know. And of course, he was our first child. First child special needs, I think, is always a difficult situation, regardless of where you are in the world. And for us, it was a very, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know the details of things. And then you're dealing with German doctors. And back then, it was sort of the third or fourth year that we were in Germany. And we were dealing with medical terminology that we didn't understand. And sometimes doctors would tell us something and we'd realize like weeks later, wait, they were trying to tell us something important. We didn't get it. We missed it somehow. So that has also been a huge thing in raising kids for us, is having a special needs kid where we had to learn a very specific kind of jargon. But it's also, it's just one of those things. I think he gets a lot of benefits from living in Germany as well, from all the kinds of things that the medical aid offers and so and so, and great therapy here as well. So it's been interesting to see all sides of it. And yeah, I think, it's not an easy question to answer, but I think we'll see in the next few years how other kids see my kids, and if they feel different to the other kids. Then I had a question from the expat cast, who is Nicole, by the way, and she asks, "What's your cringiest I've become too German moment?" And this was a difficult question because I've become German in many things that I don't even notice it anymore. It's only when I speak to foreigners on my podcast or other friends that I realize, oh yeah, I do that now, and I never used to do that at home. So it's very difficult for me to pinpoint my cringiest moment. But I think maybe like when I go back to South Africa and there's no one to see, like you go to a restaurant and there's no one to see you to your table, and then you sit down, and within 5 minutes you haven't like had someone take your drink order. I get antsy nowadays. I mean, that's standard for South Africa, but now I get antsy. Like I need to be seated and I need someone to be taking my drinks order very soon after arriving. And if it doesn't happen, so I get annoyed, and then I immediately want to start complaining in the restaurant, and like all my South African family or friends are like, what are you talking about? This is the service is fine. Yeah. So there is, it's not a very good cringy moment, but it's what I could think of. Yeah, that is it for this Q&A session. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. Next week, I'm going to be having a guest again on the show. It'll be Nina, who returns. She's been on the show like the second most amount of times of anyone. But it's always a pleasure to have her. And we're going to be talking about gestures that Germans make and some one-word expressions or syllables that they say. And she's going to explain them to us. Like, what do Germans mean when they do these things? So I'm very excited for that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening to this in your podcast feed, don't forget to subscribe to the show. If you have any questions for me, I'd like to do more of these Q&A sessions in the future. Send me your questions to info@thegermanyexperience.de. You can go to thegermanyexperience.de/contact and you can send me a message there, or leave me a voicemail on my website. That's possible too. Yeah, I think that is it for this episode. Yeah, and that means auf Wiederhören.